Back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something that's been causing a bit of a stir lately.
Yeah.
It's the Overseas Citizen of India card,
Right.
or as most people know it, the OCI card.
Yeah, the OCI card.
Now, you've probably seen the headlines,
Mm-hmm.
OCI holders saying they suddenly feel like they're being treated as foreigners,
Right.
which I imagine would leave people scratching their heads a bit.
It's definitely caused a wave of confusion.
A lot of people wondering what's going on, what's changed.
And rightfully so. I mean, it's not like there was some big rule change that happened overnight.
Right.
To really understand this, we kind of have to rewind a bit. Go back to 2021.
Okay.
There was a pretty significant amendment made to the OCI policy back then,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to be the root of this foreigner sentiment that we keep seeing pop up.
Okay, so rewind it is. But before we get into the weeds of that amendment,
Sure.
let's cover the basics for anyone who might not be familiar.
Yeah, good idea.
What exactly is an OCI card? Why was it introduced?
So the OCI card was rolled out back in 2005, and it was really intended to reach out to the Indian diaspora
Yeah.
all over the world. And we're talking massive numbers here, over 45 lakh cardholders
Wow.
across 129 countries.
That's huge.
Huge, yeah. So essentially it's a lifelong visa
Okay.
with some pretty great perks.
So no more having to register with the police every time someone visits?
Nope, gone.
Nice.
Multiple entries, smoother travel overall. It was a game changer for people with Indian roots who wanted to maintain those close ties to India.
Sounds like it was a huge hit. But what's interesting is that, from what I understand, initially, OCI holders had a very similar standing to NRIs, non-resident Indians.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yeah, that parity was really key.
Yeah.
It meant that OCIs had access to a lot of the same benefits as NRIs, especially when it came to things like economics, finance, even education.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really opened a lot of doors for them to engage with India on a much deeper level.
Okay, so everything's going swimmingly.
Right.
Then 2021 rolls around. What happened?
Well, let's just say things got a little more complicated. The 2021 amendment we mentioned,
Yeah.
it brought in some big changes,
Yeah.
particularly when it came to the economic rights of OCI cardholders.
Uh-huh. So this is where the plot thickens. We're not just talking about visa rules anymore. This is about how OCIs can participate in the Indian economy.
You got it.
Okay, I'm hooked. Break it down for us. What exactly changed in 2021 that's causing all this buzz?
Okay, so the 2021 amendment brought in a few key changes.
Okay.
First, it put some restrictions on certain activities for OCI cardholders.
Like what?
Things like conducting research,
Okay.
engaging in religious activities, even journalism. They would need special permissions for these things.
Which they didn't need before.
Right.
So hypothetically, if an OCI card holder wanted to, say, set up a nonprofit that was focused on religious freedom in India,
Right.
they would need to get additional approvals now.
Exactly. Or let's say you're an OCI card holder.
Yeah.
And you work for a foreign newspaper, and they want to send you to cover some big story in India, something really sensitive.
Right.
You need to go through a whole other layer of bureaucracy now compared to before 2021.
Right. Wow. Okay, so it's not just about visiting family anymore. This is some pretty serious engagement with India that we're talking about. What else changed?
Another change was visiting protected areas.
Protected areas.
Yeah, like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, those sorts of places.
Okay.
So OCIs now need special permits for these,
Huh.
similar to what's required for foreign nationals.
Interesting. It's like those aspects of Indian life are being treated differently now for OCI holders?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But the biggest change, the one that seems to be at the heart of this whole foreigner debate, is about economic rights.
Okay. Right.
Remember we were talking about how OCIs used to be on par with NRIs in that regard?
Yeah, that initial parity was a big deal.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the 2021 amendment changed that. It aligned OCI economic rights with those of foreign nationals under the Foreign Exchange Management Act, or FEMA for short.
Okay, so that's a mouthful, FEMA. And for our listeners out there, that acronym probably doesn't mean a whole lot.
Right.
So can you break down what that means, practically speaking, for OCI holders?
Sure. In a nutshell, it means that OCIs are no longer treated the same as NRIs when it comes to things like investing in India
Okay.
or owning certain types of property.
So that level playing field we talked about, it's starting to tilt a bit now.
Yeah, you could say that.
It's not just about visas anymore, it's about economic engagement now.
Exactly. And it's important to clarify here. This doesn't affect any existing investments made by OCI cardholders before the amendment.
Right, so nothing's being taken away.
No, those are still protected.
That's good. I'm sure that'll be a relief to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
but it does change things going forward. For any future engagement,
Right.
an OCI cardholder now have to navigate the same rules and regulations as any other foreign national when it comes to certain economic activities in India.
So basically, it's less about what you've already built and more about what you can build going forward.
Precisely.
Okay.
And I think that shift in perspective is what's causing some of this unease among OCI cardholders.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it raises questions about their place,
Yeah.
in the larger narrative of India's growth.
That's a really good point. Because it's one thing to talk about visas and paperwork, but when you start talking about something as personal and as impactful as economic participation,
Right.
the stakes feel a lot higher.
Absolutely. It gets to the heart of what it means to be a part of something,
Yeah.
to contribute to a nation's future, even if you don't necessarily live within its borders.
This has me wondering, why make these changes in the first place? Like, what was the driving force behind all of this?
That's the million-dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, our sources don't explicitly state the reasons behind these amendments.
So it's a bit of a mystery then.
Yeah, you could say that.
But hey, that's what makes these deep dives so interesting, right?
Exactly.
We've got to piece together the puzzle ourselves.
It's like detective work.
Right.
But instead of fingerprints, we're looking at policy changes,
Mm-hmm.
geopolitical shifts, social dynamics, all of that.
And just like any good detective would tell you, sometimes you've got to read between the lines.
Precisely.
So while we might not have a clear-cut answer as to why these changes were made,
Right.
it's important to at least consider the broader context.
Absolutely.
Like, think about what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
India's place in it all, its relationships with other nations.
All of that plays a role, for sure.
It's like that saying, no man is an island,
Mm-hmm.
or I guess in this case, no country is an island.
Exactly.
And as India's relationships with other nations evolve, so too does its relationship with its diaspora.
Right.
And this OCI card,
Yeah.
it's kind of a fascinating lens through which to view all of this evolution.
It really is.
Like, we're seeing these big, complex themes, identity, belonging, global citizenship, all playing out right in front of us.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about rules and regulations. It's about something much deeper.
Yeah, it's about how we define our connection to a place, even if we don't physically live there.
Right. It's about what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
A global community.
Exactly. And I think most importantly, it's about recognizing that those definitions, they're constantly evolving, just like the world around us.
It's true. It feels like we're at this pivotal moment
I think so too.
where the lines are blurring, and those old ways of thinking about citizenship, about belonging,
Right.
they're being challenged.
Absolutely. And that can be unsettling for some,
Mm-hmm.
while exciting for others, of course.
Of course.
But one thing's for sure, it's a conversation that's only going to become more important as we move forward.
As we've been unpacking all of this, I can't help but think about our listener,
Mm-hmm.
one who's been with us this whole time on this deep dive.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just some abstract policy debate. This has real-world implications.
Absolutely. And it's not just about India's relationship with its diaspora as a whole either. It's about your individual connection with India.
Exactly. So we want to leave you with this.
Okay.
How has this deep dive changed your perspective? What questions has it raised for you personally?
Because this isn't the end of the conversation.
Here I am.
This is just the beginning of your own exploration.
We've given you the tools, the information, and hopefully it's sparked a little curiosity.
Hopefully a lot.
Now it's your turn to go out and dig a little deeper, Connect the dots in a way that makes sense for you, for
Exactly.
your own unique journey.
And who knows, maybe your exploration will lead to even more questions,
Right?
more insights, more deep dives of your own.
That's the beauty of knowledge.
It really
It's
is.
a never-ending journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
A huge thank you to our expert for lending your incredible insights to this very complex topic.
My pleasure. Always a joy to dive into these fascinating discussions.
And to you, our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you on the flip side.